You're gonna light us on fire and expect nothing to happen like it doesn't matter. That's not the way this works. You can't just lift the ones we love away from us like it doesn't matter. 'Cause then we get angry.
Hey! Wolfgrad, Watto friend. Hello, hello. Deus, Watto friend. Deus, do you not have like a fancy little gem? Or is Twitch being grumpy? Because if not, that is criminal and someone will be going to Shadow Realm. Meowkity Sakura, Watto, welcome, friends! I want to admit, I'm a little bit... Oh, shit, Deus, we're changing that. I am... Nervous is the wrong word. I got like a weird kind of excitement about me today. I guess, you know what? Actually, I guess nerves are fair. This isn't the first time that we've had Jordan on the show, or Null as you know him. But I don't know, this feels special. Chato Watto, welcome! Good to see you. Come on in, friends. You've got about half an hour and change before our glorious guests are joining us. Hey! Game Dev Lord Lost and Found. Cat and Cuttle Cat Watto, friends! Come on in, come on in. Somehow, if you missed the announcement, today we are going back to the Blackout Club. And not only do we have the trailer for Deus's new works, not only do we have the core Blackout Club team together ready to careen around Red Acre once more, but Jordan and Stefan will be joining us on the line, and we're going to be just... Tonight is going to be a proper celebration.
Sensors online,
So...
weapons online, all systems nominal.
It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years! Rilu, how in the hot heck are you doing, friend? And thank you for 37 months, and everything else that you do or inflict around here. And in fairness, the last time we had Null on the show was to talk about the Cradle. God. Oh shit! That's
Reactor
decadent.
online, sensors online, weapons online, all systems nominal.
Rolls around in soon to be yours Bezos money.
Soon. MDH, thank you for 35 months. And I hope you're doing good. So Rilu took 3 naps today. Save some fucking naps for the rest of us, Jesus.
Reactor online, sensors online, weapons online, all systems nominal.
Sending a package of 10,000 hugs to be divided between all y'all.
It's going to be hard not to claim those all for myself, but I will do my best. And thank you for 5 months. How are you all doing? Watto and welcome! Oh. And Puns and Wraith and Vanderbeest. Watto friends!
Captain on the bridge.
Oh. And Jarl Infinitus, powerhouse to the throne, Firestraker. Watto and welcome. Still 48 months, you fucking ledge. And Vanderbeest, thank you for the pint glass. So everyone's aware of what's going on today. So, we've got a Deus trailer, we've got Debs from the Blackout Club
Reactor
joining
online,
us on the line.
Sensors online, weapons online, all systems
Apparently
nominal.
you're starting off with a train. This is going to be a lot today.
Why hello there, everyone. Wait no. That's wrong. What I meant was, what ho, everyone.
Watto and welcome! And Alpha, thank you for, Jesus, 47 months. So, trailer for Deus's new video. We've got Debs the Blackout Club.
Sensors online, weapons online, all systems nominal.
Alright, get it out of your systems. Get it out of your systems.
COVID round 2 but the TBC grind don't stop. Happy 2 years W.
And Prismacolors, thank you for 2 years. And I hope it's... I hope the symptoms are mild, and I hope you are doing well. Oh, shit! Jarl Infinitus taking personal exception at your fronts, dear friends. And Fire Striker, thank you fucking kindly. I hope you're doing good. Yeah, I have been working on a lot of things all at once and getting ready for this, and I gotta admit, I'm simultaneously overexcited and nervous. I think I might actually be nervous for once.
What ho? The train already?
Yeah. So, grab on, friend. Grab on. Although, it's a train into a train car, so, nerve-sighted, yes, Air Dragon, nerve-sighted. But it's lovely to see you all, and fucking thank you all, sorry, I'm very overwhelmed. So, we will be pausing alerts when,
What ho? Kicking it off lively today.
yeah, kicking it off loud. Once our lovely guests join us, we will be pausing alerts for a bit. This is mostly so that, you know, in the event that, you know, Null or Stefan say something really important or really cool about the Blackout Club, I don't want the sound of air horns and mech noises to override it.
So, do you think that the Ghostbusters are chats with Find Thy Voice?
You know my thoughts. I think the Ghostbusters are a scam. I'm just saying. We've played enough Sea of Thieves to know you can just shoot ghosts. Oh yeah, and yeah, Dustin will have the first stuff from the Bureau. To all Bureau agents, and actually to those of you that have really enjoyed the Blackout Club.
Happy Friday, yo.
And a happy Friday to you, Keldra. You may really enjoy this, friends. So, whilst everyone's getting in, and whilst you lot are basically power charging up a feckin' train. So, I've been playing this game called the Bureau of Multiversal Affairs. The Bureau of Multiversal Arbitration. It is a game that takes place entirely inside a Discord. That this is Star and Chat been working on, and it's feckin'
I've spent so much time today trying to get the slack out of the long rope, but even with instructions I can't get it. I guess some things just can't be taught.
Puns, why are you like this? Why are you like this? But no, all of you, thank you for the bits so much. But yeah, the link that I've dropped in chat is a surrealist, fascinating, completely Discord-based game that is absolutely worth your time. The reason why I say if you enjoy the Blackout Club is because if you've put as much time as we all have into something that's...
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
It's me, your god, the idea.
God darn it. I didn't get it until you said it out loud. And Snuggly, like, thank you for 39 months. Which does mean that it's been exactly 39 months since Kyle and I started playing the Blackout Club. Anyway, TLDR, Bureau of Multiversal Arbitration, check it out. It is utterly fascinating.
Mike Townsend has to get out of bed. Mike Townsend's got the voice in his head and can't remove the heavy feeling. And it persists through the morning commute. He's running late, so he texts I'm en route, but he can't remove the heavy feeling. And it's the coffee with one sugar. And he wonders where they took her.
Okay, and Captain Stephanie Barnes, Watto, and welcome. Hello, hello. Bismarck, greetings. Come on in, friends, come on in. Oh. But yeah, I've been really excited to... Oh god, no, I almost sounded like one of those bland video game announcements. We're really excited to announce... No, you're not, mate. How are you doing, friends? As I said, I'm a little bit nervous about tonight. Like, in a good way. Like, we've been planning this for ages, and it's amazing how much has come from this. So, like, initially, myself and Tobias got very drunk, and pitched Deus an idea in the wee hours about a follow-up to his previous video. And I still... Oh, yes. The train has concluded by the power of train. And initially, when we pitched it, it was more kind of like a... I don't even remember now. In fairness, we were drinking a lot that night. And Deus's creative skills and the project has turned into something feckin' incredible. The kind of thing that has a trailer. So, while we don't have the entirety of Deus's video today, this is something that is going to be worth the wait. Sorry, Occult Game was saying the world needs more magic circle stands. Hey, you know you got me. I will pitch that game at people all GDC long. Like, I don't know what my my role would be. Like, freelance hype person? Although that seems a little disingenuous because I genuinely enjoy all that, so. Oh, sorry, just Deus was adding that it has a trailer because of the narrative elements, as they do go off the rails. Yup, and it's gonna be so good. Look, no, with love and respect, it is the one thing that I will critique question about until the end of time is you guys suck at telling people how cool you are. I'm just saying, like, give me a coffee and a ham sandwich, and I can be I can tell people about your games. Like, Occult Game Dev will attest to my skills. I will tell people. Oh. This is going to be a good night. It's going to be a good night. So, to recap, we have Null and Stephen joining us, or Stefan, sorry, joining us on the line in about 15-20 minutes. I mean, as they see. We're just going to be having them on audio, so I'll probably jump into the back of the Blackout Club so we can have a little totter about. We've got the Deus trailer, and myself and Ems and Kyle and Fiona will be jumping back into the Blackout Club this evening. So if any of you want to try stalking or causing mischief... Okay. Stephen with an Eve sound. Okay, that I can do. So yeah, so if any of you also want to jump in some runs alongside, or some stalking or mischief or what have you, you are cordially invited. Tonight is a celebration of the Blackout Club. So I want to hear about your stories, your experiences, your thoughts and your feels. You know? It's been how long since the story came to a close, and yet still we're talking about it. There's still nothing else like this. And it feels like being part of this incredibly strange alumni. Like, being part of the Blackout Club really does feel like something special, you know? Yeah, has it been nearly a year? Bleed Nora. Well, no, it's gonna be a good night. It's gonna be a good night. God. And I'm gonna try not to heap too many compliments on our lovely guests. But it is fascinating that the last time that we had Null on the line was for a completely different game series, which was also one of those like underappreciated seminal works. I have this strong philosophy that in about like 2 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing a lot more experiences that take what the Blackout Club tried to do. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Not tried to do, but take what the Blackout Club succeeded in and delivering them in smaller, tighter, focused setups. It's just a personal theory of mine that, you know, with the standardization of engines and things like that, is game dev side, it may get easier to create these, you know, unique little snippet. How we'll handle them, I don't know. one of the things that's been really difficult for this year has been part of, like, how can I talk about this? Video Game Awards. So I was part of the Indie Cup Canada this year. I was a named judge. It's not the only game award thing that I've been a judge for. But one of the things that's so tricky about it is that, like, how do you convey these experiences if you weren't there at the time? Wraith, not a chance. But no, like, when it comes to, say, BAFTA, for example, they have a thing called Evolving Games. But how do you convey an evolving experience like this? Like, I don't have an answer to this, but I think that the Blackout Club has been incredibly inspirational for a lot of game devs, and I think we'll see people trying to create the same sort of thing with their own spin and their own twist and their own flavor. And it takes games between, like, 2 and 5 years to put together, so... Oh. Now, I will say, the gods will not be showing up this evening, to my knowledge. I don't know any of the deities. And now that we know that they are the cast of Critical Role, it makes banging out a quick cold email surprisingly difficult. I considered it, I did, but nerves got the better of me, friends. Nerves got the better of me. God, I think it's only of the cast. I've met Ashley Birch a couple of times back in, like, PAXs and game dev events in 1,000 years. I got to chat with Erica Ishii at the Vampire event at GDC 2019. God, that feels like a long time ago. But I don't really know any of the casts, so it's not like I can be like, hey, Maddie Mercerface, want to come chat about video games? Well, Chanto, we can definitely ask him that when we get on the lines. What I will say though, friends, so once we get our lovely dev friends on, please feel free to @Viking Blonde or @Null in chat. There's probably gonna be a bunch of people coming on in once our lovely dev friends get on the line, and it might get a bit hectic. So if your question doesn't get read out, if we don't banter on it, please feel free to articulate. But we're going to be pausing alerts. I know, shocking turn of events. And considering you lot already brought the thunder with a level 4 train, like, I hope you know I do not make that decision lightly. And TBC, I know what you mean. I've been really enjoying Sea of Thieves on a Friday, and I love that it keeps us all together. One of the things that I was so frightened of after the story of the Blackout Club came to an end was that, like, you know, we'd all drift off into the night. But there's still nothing quite like it. Like, there are many emergent games out there, but this is the perfect blend of emergent and RP. It was that excitement every Friday of, like, anything could happen. Truly anything. Hey!
What hope?
I kind of miss my routine, you know what I mean? Like, wait until the Red Acre Neighborhood Watch drops, like, catch up on all the info from, like, all the other runners, see what's going down, see what we can help, or, you know, occasionally seeing our little corner of the story intersecting with everybody else's. It's fucking fascinating. Oh. This is going to be a good night, friends. This is going to be a very good night. Oh yeah, Snugly. So, Red Acre Neighborhood Watch, Streaming Profit, Then all the live streams and catching up with everybody. God. Winning those little resin the idea symbols. The only time I won, everyone had claimed all of the idea symbols, and I couldn't claim for it. I was like, grumble, 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 grumble.
Because I can.
Dom! Dom, feckin' thank you. No, I got to be a professional tonight. You are not reducing me to a bubbly pile of tears. But no, seriously, Dom, you know me. Like, donations are a huge, huge help. So thank you. And it wouldn't be a Blackout Club night without Rilu being a fucking terror. Oh, is that just smoked salmon cream cheese just on rocket bagels at 1 o'clock in the morning? Oh, just classic Rilu cooking. Yeah. Yeah. And Snuggly, I think that's a big part of what kept us all coming back, is we never knew what was going to go down on a Friday. What was also fascinating was that it never felt like... It never felt like on the evenings where we didn't get a visit that we were somehow, like, snubbed or shorted. Sorry, I guess my thoughts are all still kind of careening all over the place. But... it didn't feel like a day where we didn't get a visit was an insult or a snub, or that we missed out. You never really truly knew when things were going to go down. I still remember that one stream where we were playing, everyone kind of felt tired and tapped out. It was like, okay. So so we logged off, but I was like, you know what? I just want to kind of... I think I just done a sacrifice, so I wanted to just get the early level stuff out the way, and I started playing off stream. And then the idea's like, knock knock! The noise I made as I panicked to push the go live button again. You never knew! And as I said, like, as much as I am loving Sea of Thieves and a lot of other experiences, like, you know where you stand. You know, Sea of Thieves is one of the best emergent narrative games on the market, but it's still within the sandbox. They did an ARG puzzle-solving thing earlier in the year, which was fun. It was okay, but I've been spoiled. I mean, shit, the introduction of the old language, the old tongue, being body language, that the emotes that are thrown around by every multiplayer game was a sneaky language snuck into the game. It was inspired. And I remember that whole spree when everyone was translating the old tongue, and it was just incredible. But unlike an ARG, it didn't feel like you had to be on the cusp of the mysteries or GTFO. It really did feel like we were all coming at it together, all unlocking those emotes and testing them out, and the first time you go in the space between, fuck me, running, that was good. And what I have seen with, you know, larger studios trying to do the same thing is it feels like a sanitized version. It feels safe. The thing that Sea of Thieves did this year was who killed DeMarco. And we found out I think the most interesting hook of that was users having to wear the correct uniform to question the right person. Oh, yeah. God. Sorry, Miyaki Sakura is mentioning the sneak of the hunter pretending to be dance for you. Fucking yo. I mean, you were there for it when the hunter just went quiet, and we were like, oh, fuck it. Alright, whew. Alright. Toothy Bugger's gone. Surprise! Was there the whole time. Oh, and yeah, and see, Chanto, that was another thing that was so powerful about it, was the fact that these huge forces within Redacre, they could die. They could be consumed or lost or sacrificed. You know, the shadow games within shadow games happening was just incredible. Friends, I'm just gushing about the Blackout Club now, right? I should, while Twitter is still alive, I should probably let people know that we are live.
Pause one out for Die For You.
Yep. Actually, I finished my can, but... Oh, this is my little treat. I got heavy metal water. Which is not actually heavy water, but it's sparkly water with a cool package, alright? I'm a nerd. I'm a sucker for these things. Prisma says they weren't even home for Die For You's death. I was there? Wait, no.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
I always get Dance
our
For You
4 reptilian
and...
heroes, have overcome the arc villain Shredder.
Snuggly just gave out 5 subs, and it seemed to summon you.
I had to make something cozy for River.
No. Gotta throw that in, general. As Dance For Us, Die For You. Yeah. Because we weren't there. God, the death of Dance For Us was just... That was the point where we all realised no one is safe. And then the death of Die For You. He knew what he was doing. But, like, I was there. I froze. I should have been just hoiking flashbangs somehow. Yeah, Demons, it was brutal. Sorry, the tunes are getting a wee bit weird there. And PVS, thank you kindly. Oh yeah, Deus. Fucking you! No, so Demons and everybody who's joined us, like, tonight is a celebration of the Blackout Club. Like, we're here to share these stories. We're here to talk about it. Null was also adding that the voice actors practice a few things. Voice actors practice a few things in their entire lives. Not quite so much screaming. PVS, it's good to see you. Sorry, forgive me while I'm multi-track Drifty Potato. I'm just making sure that I get everything announced and ready so that anyone who might have... So many tags. Oh, sorry, Captain Step was saying they still can't believe they sang Die For You to Matt Mercer. Yo! Now, we've talked about this a lot of times, but it does bear stating again. I'm really glad that none of us knew who those performers were. And it's absolutely a sign of how great all the vocal talents were for the Blackout Club, because I did not know. I mean, I think we all knew Ashley Birch was playing Bells, but aside from that, no feckin' clue. Like feckin' y'all. Sorry, like I said, friends, I'm a little bit nervous today. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. This is going to be a good night. Also, I keep using Deus's gorgeous visuals, which I've definitely missed using those. My tweet's too long. For as long as Twitter still exists. Alright. Okay, tweet's cooked. Let's get that deployed. Let's trundle into the back of the Blackout Club truck and go from there, friends. Boosh. Probably misspelled something there, but figure! Okay. Alright. Sorry, just jumping back into chat. So the Taco Tyrant was saying the moment they heard a clip of the measure cuts, they knew. Okay. I mean, props to you. Yeah, and Demons, that's definitely been my feeling, is like, I'm retroactively nervous now, knowing what we know about the Blackout Club and who played everything. Okay. So... as much as I love this track... right. So, let's get into the back of the Blackout Club. And then... let's get our lovely guests on the line, shall we? It's time to talk Blackout Club. I've been looking forward to this for many, many moons. Yeah, Prismacolors. I booted it up earlier just to make sure everything was working. And there it is. Whoa! You know, I still find myself holding my breath when I log in, just in case the door behind opens or something unfurls. Okay. So, let's get these lovely mother hobbits in. Yeah, sudden godcast. You are no longer safe. I wholeheartedly agree with you all, like... Okay. So let's bring in our lovely guests, and let's get chatting. Hello, hello.
Sorry, had to get to the unmute. Hello.
Hello! Fucking welcome!
Mouse, I had to mute you on stream.
No one's ready for two wills. both of you! Viking, yo! Hello!
Yeah.
Hello.
Conned him in.
I am sure all of our lovely, lovely viewers are, yet they're all being like, hey Ru, hey Null, hey everybody!
People have heard plenty from me. I felt like it was time. We're gonna slowly chain through all the face cards from that game. We'll get Kane on here, David, etc.
I mean, if anybody else wants to jump on in and come chat and share stories and stuff, tonight's the night. Like, it has the usual amount of well-flavored chaos, and I don't believe, Ru, that I have had the chance of meeting your good self before. So hello.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously super familiar with you through all the streaming that you've done of the game, but yeah, I don't think we've ever spoken. If we did, I've forgotten like much of the last 3 years. So
It's been a lot.
yeah.
So, just on the off chance that there are any lovely Mother Hubbards that haven't met your good selves, would you both mind introducing yourselves?
Not at all. Steven, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so my name's Steven Alexander. I'm one of the founders at Question and the art guy at Question. We have more art people at Question now, but I think when we started the Blackout Club, I was the only one, and sort of got a few more on board as contractors who are now full-time during the Blackout Club. So the art director, art lead artist, whatever. We don't really have a title in that way, but that's that's what I do, primarily.
Yeah, I'm Jordan Thomas, also a co-owner of the company, and I'm kind of a narrative director, sort of really terrible, reluctant CEO when we need one for representation externally, but we don't really have any of that structure. It's just sort of a set of duties. On the Blackout Club, I was a lead writer in terms of the overall story, and a lot of the text gods were played by me, and then voice director. I worked with all the actors playing the sort of full calorie gods.
Well, both of you, thank you for taking some time out to join us this evening. It's one of those things, I don't even know where to start. I think I can speak for everybody by just starting with thank you. The Blackout Club is one of the exceptional games, and to everybody who's had a chance to be a part of it, be it large or small, it's something that's stayed with us all. So seriously, to you and the whole ass team, thank you.
I can turn that right around. Thank you. The
Oh,
thing
shit!
that made it.
Uno reverso!
That's the thing that makes making this game rewarding has been watching you and people like you get so much out of it. Because it took a lot to make, especially out of Jordan, but out of all of us. So it's makes it feel worth it when you see people who got so deeply into it.
Okay, everyone has one
Resist
question.
the implication that I was left as a sort of meat wraith, but we can go with it.
I think we're all aware that the state of the planet threw a big old monkey wrench in the third act of the Blackout Club, and it does feel, Null, like you went above and beyond for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I want to call him Ru because in the context of our Discord, that I was protecting privacy as much as I could. But anyway, what Steven just said about the community, there are certainly games that made a lot more money. There are games that have a lot more people who would sort of trumpet them, maybe. But I think there are a few that ever reached that sort of intimate connection with the community where they were 100% part of the ecosystem. They were feeding back. They were low key across population doing some writing too, without really knowing it. I know ARGs, etc. There's probably people who are versed in those who would leap and say, "Oh no, there's lots of stuff just like this." But in our experience coming out of AAA, nothing even close. So we're grateful that people trusted us, which you're gonna hear me repeat a lot probably.
Yes, it got intense, and I've got to agree. Like, from having both, experienced and worked on the AAA kind of side of things, like, there's a few that come close, and like, no disrespect to any of the ARG companies, I fucking love everybody over at Allison Smith, but it's a different beast. And as I was saying, Sea of Thieves has kind of been my nicotine patch. As a Blackout Club replacement, and they ran a mystery throughout the summer, but it was a traditional ARG, like, murder mystery whodunit, and I was there being like, well, it's not like the gods are going to pop down from the sky. Although, sorry to throw in an aside, there is one weird little quirk of the Sea of Thieves game that nearly had me pee myself live on air. When a server becomes too empty in Sea of Thieves, because there's meant to be some kind of, like, clashing of players, they'll move you from one server to another. It's referred to as server merging. But the way it works is that your UI disappears and these ghostly words appear on screen. Oh, just like when the idea comes a knocking, or when... I'm still going to call it management. We all freaked the fuck out. We're like, how did he find us?
That's hilarious. I play a lot of Sea of Thieves, so I'm very familiar with what you're describing.
Freaked us the heck out. Okay, so everybody has asked the same question that I would like to ask you both. What was up with the buffalo? It's been...
Oh, the buffalo.
I refuse. I'm putting that on you, man.
That was a... We were trying to think of really surreal. Well, okay, so it's a combination of things on the art side. One, the practical side of it was we needed footage that we didn't have to pay for. So that was a piece of it. But then it was also we had a couple of different clips, but it ended up being that practically we could only show one. And the buffalo, I found it creepy in a sort of like primal kind of like just sort of like meditative way, because that room was all about, at least for me, it was about kind of putting people's brains into a state by forcing them to sort of stare at something and hear something. What did we call that room, Jordan? Do you remember?
I think it got renamed really late, so offhand...
Anybody in chat happen to remember?
They'd probably know what the final label set was.
Because it was something along those lines, I think. It wasn't indoctrination, was it? No. Subliminal media, that sounds right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Because
So that was
the notion was they were, I'll go ahead. I'll fill out a little bit of the like justification in a second.
No, that's where I was going anyway, so go for it.
Oh, well, in the universe of the Blackout Club, there is an entity that speaks only in pictures, and it's a deep background thing because we weren't able to pull it off. Originally, the thought was that you would see messages from such a thing. We had a license from Getty Images, and but the getting clips to say just what we wanted to say was a Herculean task that would have added a year to the schedule, probably, from a couple of people who were the most taxed. So we ended up not doing that. That said, it's still a world where such a thing is active, and Speak as One, the sort of antagonist entity, is concerned about further infiltration from this thing, which we refer to from time to time as the Eidolon. And images with horns or horned beasts are like popular among the sort of type of media that have been infiltrated before or packed. That's like a thematic jumping off point that the entity would use. So in my head, there was a deep justification for why the buffalo clip was fine to use, but it wasn't it must be buffalo. We must specifically torture Will for years to come.
Look, it is a credit to how you all have told the story that these tiny little details became things that we became fixated with. And it's nice to know that, in a mystical, blue sky timeline, that would have been like the jumping off point of the Eidolon thread.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to know I wasn't going completely loopy. There was some intent behind it. You know, it wasn't like I was just staring at a can of beans being like, but what does this can of beans mean?
Yeah, I mean, it may be actually some sort of Blackout Club related PTSD, but when people start demanding things, I can't help it. Like, part of me wants to do the opposite. It's sort of the dare instinct. And so I had to have Ru break the seal before I could give you anything.
I don't know, I like it. Because, like, we had Blazeball, which was all about the yes and the Blackout Club, which was feck you, I do what I want, as two different narrative communities, and I loved that. You know,
yeah.
It also meant we could never tell where things were going. God, I'm sorry, I'm basically just dominating the conversation here. Laughs last, third act heal. Oh my god. Like, that is a perfect example of that. You know, we on the community side, you know, asking and demanding and pushing, and the plan, it felt like the plan stayed. I'm sorry, I'm not phrasing it very well, because it makes it seem as if it makes it seem like a bad thing. I would not have guessed that Laughs Last was going to come in with a folding chair and, like, in the final throwdown for the villains, you know what I mean? And I think it speaks to how well y'all had command of the story. We were part of it, but never... Yeah, someone needs to take the conversation away from me, because I've lost the thread of the point.
Well, yeah. Are there other folks on the line, or do you mean one of us?
Oh, both of one of you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so Laugh Last, for a few folks in chat who mentioned they're not familiar with the game yet, I don't think they were all joking. But Laugh Last is this sort of spirit throughout history that began as a rather innocent sort of stress release, the urge to joke in a serious situation, way back in the first tribe of humans, which in our fiction developed pretty differently and was sort of lost due to a divide caused by these voices in your head. Well, Laugh Last started out just, basically like cutting a fart in the middle of the, like, we have to find food or we'll die kind of speech from the authority figures. And there was a lot of rejection of that. And ironically, another voice that is one of the more sympathetic ones the players are interacting with via Dare, the rebel who should have been supportive of that wasn't, thought it was an attack and treated him poorly, and that resentment metastasized over many, many years. We didn't go into the third act, if such can be said, with the pandemic and everything, of the Blackout Club, knowing that he would be the betrayer. He was just, let's just call it betrayal, curious. He exemplifies the thing that we saw going around a few years ago when things were getting bad on Twitter. Where people would say things like, when folks tell you who they are, believe them, meaning that oftentimes there are signs that a person harbors problematic sort of beliefs, and they will slip out in casual conversation when you're not ready to scrutinize. So we just tried to not make him obvious, make him somebody who people felt was not particularly trustworthy, but who also didn't take anything that seriously and could just as easily get distracted in the middle of any kind of plot, all of which was true. But players pitched to him directly, and it was a small but vocal percentage of them, that his best play for survival, since he had mentioned that that's what he wanted, was to align with the antagonist, the sort of ultimate unsympathetic audience. So that was definitely forged. Like, again, we had thoughts that he was treacherous. We did not say for sure that was going to happen until a really good coherent pitch was there, which, we could low-key be like, yeah, it's sort of your fault. Like, there's non-zero amount of the Blackout Club is us, like, saying, like, okay, like, this relationship flows both ways. Like, some of the drama is going to come from stuff that we spotted amongst your
no.
whispers.
Sorry,
I remember that
Reeler's
being really
like,
important to
Oh, go for
Null,
it.
like throughout. Yeah.
Oh, what were
Sorry.
you saying, Steve?
I was just saying, I remember that being really important to you throughout. That there really was truly a bit of that none of this stuff was set in stone, and that you could that's what made it fun for you in a lot of ways, was the fact that the input coming from the community could nudge things. Like, you had ideas about where things might go, but you tried not to. It was a giant D&D campaign in some ways.
Right, because again, like, there are other people with more money. There are other people with more people, more developers. There are other projects that have marketing resources, that people who can run ARGs and puzzles and so forth. Why bother to do this if you're just going to have people speak live lines that could have been canned? And at least to me, that meant there needed to be some major movements that the players ultimately, if not decided through voting, but decided quietly by pitching them to us, not knowing what problems they were helping us solve.
That's fascinating. And also, betrayal curious may be one of the best terms that I have heard all day. That's definitely going in the bank. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was laughing because a lot of people were saying, "Oh no, it's our fault," and now he's playing solitaire in a cell. Oh no.
I mean, let's be clear. Like, he was sort of halfway to betraying everybody. Like, it's not all on y'all.
Also, friends, if you've got any questions for Null or Ru, please feel free to @Viking Blonde in chat. We've got a lot of friendos here, and we've got a lot of things about this game to celebrate. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing any good banters. I guess the other big one that I wanted to ask you both about was the final section of the map. I think that was the only other, aside from the buffalo, that was the only other mystery I felt left with. What was the plan?
By final, what do you mean? Because to us, that might be.
I think he means the same thing we might mean, which is that area of the hill.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk through that one, Stephen?
I can say what I remember what our intent was for it, sort of
Sure.
broadly speaking, is that, that was going to be it was like sort of a co-living space. I think, Null, you had mentioned that it was born a little bit out of a place that you knew when you were a kid, but it was going to be sort of where the sort of nucleus of Chorus Communities was centered. And it was a, not like the school and not like the houses down below, but sort of a residential space that was multiple families sort of all merged into sort of a single large living space that was sort of porous. We only got to the really blackout phase on it, and then a big sort of woods space in between, kind of bigger than any of the other forested areas, so that there'd be sort of like some creepy, spooky woods that you would have to pass through to get to it, kind of thing. Yeah, you could probably go into more detail about it than that. No.
Well, it was originally planned, Chorus is a housing association which has uncommon influence in this fictional community of Red Acre. And it was originally meant to invoke these co-housing communities, which were prominent in my family, where one of my parents sort of grew up in something similar in New England. And then family friends have started in their late lives. And these are relatively benign, high-minded, trying to sort of mix up the way that people live so that the conventional boundaries of yards and resources aren't so rigidly defined as here is mine and there is yours and never the twain shall meet, because of what that does to your brain. And I won't deep dive on that because it's too depressing, but basically they're looking at different ways to live. I felt like Chorus could easily trumpet such ideas, but mean it in a far more fundamental way. A network of minds effectively becoming one macro intelligence, sort of wet AI across people. And so you would have, in our original plan, run missions that involved going to the houses of prominent council members, bringing those elements back down into the maze to solve some kind of problem. Like, it never got that deep. It was just, we wanted to make sure there was some place to go if the game did well enough financially. Ultimately, we made some very hard decisions, and one of the hard decisions was spending more of the money on the performance within the frame that existed rather than building more stuff.
Yes.
And it wasn't one-to-one. It wasn't necessarily all the same people, but that's what it looked like the sales were going to justify.
Yeah, and there were a couple of more maze rooms. I saw somebody asking about the gateway out of the barracks. Yeah, there was, intended that did go to an elevator that took you to sort of some areas that we had initially blocked out. There was the exploded house, I think, Jordan, was one which was from some of the very, very earliest prototypes for very different sort of story basis, but we really loved the idea and had a whole space kind of laid out for that was going to resurrect some really early, I think, fairly successful art tests. And then there was also the sensory deprivation section. There were a couple of really interesting little areas that never got very far. They got only to sort of like laid out cubes. And
some of the folks
like
in
that.
chat are asking what you mean by exploded view, as in certain technical drawings where walls sort of fly away and are set just so that you can see inside it like a diorama.
Yeah, and split like separated almost like it had been sliced and then stretched, so each floor was separated from each other floor, and then there were lots of glass walls, one-way glass, and the idea was that it was tied to watching the sleepers sort of think they're going through their daily routine, but they're, in this sort of observation kind of situation.
That's right. And themes which were carried through fairly well by the area with the sort of surreal constructed school and forest dreamscapes that have just enough physicality that the sleepwalkers can behave in a certain way.
Good old dream therapy. Reminding us all that if you've ever had the dream of being naked back in high school, that you were actually naked just with a bunch of sleepers and weird gods. That happened. Thanks for introducing that brainworm to everyone.
Yeah, definitely the exploded house was sort of a weird sibling to the school in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating because dream therapy seemed more proactive. Dream therapy was what was being done to the people whilst they were there, so it's like tweaks and adjustments, or at least that's how it felt from my perspective. But the opening with bells, when you see the plotted out blueprint, made it seem as if people were also being observed more passively and directly. So that makes a whole bunch of sense. Sorry, I guess I'm just agreeing with you on your design of your game.
Yeah, the exploded house was almost a marriage of those two concepts to an extent, I think, in my head
it was.
Anyway.
There were phases of the story development where it was her house.
That's right. Yeah.
And we just simplified that a lot and melted it down to the floor plan, which she walks through and realizes that it's a mirror of her own home. And most individuals weren't given that level of scrutiny. She was always special, a sort of ideological designer baby.
Okay. I mean, that's probably not news to the main Blackout Club core, but I wasn't aware of that, so that's fascinating. It's also another reason why I bloody love this game, is despite how in-depth we got, there's still tons of this world I don't know, and I guess that's one of the cool things about streaming it, is getting to be a focusing crystal for a lot of all this knowledge. Sorry, Snuggly was giving me shite for the betrayal elevator, or the betrayevator. I'm like, you betray someone in an elevator once, and suddenly you're that guy.
I mean, that's a tradition. I think our early promotions involved an elevator betrayal of patches, or vice versa.
Prisma was just commenting that that bells was supposed to represent doubt in its purest form, because the other complementing voice was going to be, belief in its purest form, right?
It was
Sorry if I'm oversimplifying.
No, that's okay. It was more of a question of weighting the EIGHT. In other words, Speak as one, the primary antagonist, who are sort of the gods of conformity, and of the unconscious thought as superior to the conscious will, and all of its selfishness. They never really believed that the other voices were any more than shadows of the original doubter, the original daughter of doubt, who became the Idare.
Oh, okay.
And so it was most important to expose her to him, but to the rest as well, really just to sort of almost as if immunizing against variants of a virus. They just don't regard the others as central. And so who they thought they were annihilating with the spoiler stuff, but who they thought they were annihilating with the sort of big plan at the end, would have been him and what they see as all these derivative sort of adopted family members almost.
Wow. Okay, so we're getting all the juicy stuff today. Okay, Taco Tyrant had a squishy question that I wanted to throw at you both. How difficult was it to create the story live with everyone covering and clinging to new details not previously thought of? Using Wakia as a thread example. Wakia Wellesley, bleeding Nora. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to just tack onto that very quickly. Thank you again for scaring the hot pee out of me and Kyle on Halloween with the Wakia Wellesley thread. We were not ready for that.
Well, I'd first like to hear... do you want to go with Ru, or do you want to... You mind me using your name? It's already been dropped a couple times. So.
I know. Yeah. We can stick with just because that's what we are, I guess. We can be Ru and Null. I think that's probably easier.
I'd like to hear Ru talk about this a little bit, because I imagine that at some point I asked you for something to support nonsense from that had emerged out of the Discord, but I'm wondering if it ever became assets or that kind of thing. I know
I'm trying to remember
late coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember, I know that what you did a lot was make use of stuff that had been created to be at least ambiguous enough, or things that we had intended for maybe one thread and that you found ways to turn into another thread.
That's true.
There was, because definitely, the sort of one thing we're good at Question is trying to make use of any and all work, because you can usually find a way to, we don't like to waste it if it's good work. So sometimes you can find a way to kind of bend it to a slightly different purpose. And Null is very, very good at that. And I know that there were a lot of times where we would have put something in thinking it might go one direction, and then I'd find out, it's turned into this other storyline, and that's awesome, because it means that the work was not wasted and that it's turned into something that has life. I'm trying to remember of anything that, because I don't even know, I definitely don't know all the sort of twists and turns that and the little wrinkles that the story took. I mean, you asked for things, but those were usually bigger things and earlier in development. Those things kind of, almost all that kind of stuff went in the very specific asks before we hit sort of the pandemic phase where you needed to really sort of find new, cul-de-sacs in the story and little side bits that you could continue to make the story interesting, as availability of actors and everything was difficult.
Yeah. Well, I'm fairly certain that we. I've said this before in various forms, but we certainly didn't imagine the degree of. I'm not going to be gross, but basically hunt the strong related thirst. This predatory, sort of razor sharp. Variant intelligence that splintered away and became kind of buried in notions of fair competition, etc. This was like an older, worse version coming back into the world.
I say this with love and respect. Null, have you not seen The Lion King? Everybody loves a villain. Everybody loves a villain.
Yeah, I think we just,
Big scar energy.
Yes. Well, I think it would have helped if I had watched more anime, but we didn't imagine quite the degree of devotion that he got. Also, Taliesin Jaffe is masterful and brought, charisma and dimensionality that I didn't think possible. And all this to say, that's why the Hunt the Strong mask came so much later. Like that's one thing where it's like, oh wow, there's no way we can let this one.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just gonna give him a huge pat on the back. I mean, and your good selves, like the iconic interaction we had where he just stayed quiet throughout a whole spree of our interaction. And so we all just let out a breath. We were like, okay, thank fuck, we're safe. Oh boy, if he came on round here, I would have given him one. And then he's like, it could still go south. Holy shit. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a very good example of a moment that I guess is sort of a meta theme I'm trying to get across, which is embracing chaos and sort of riding it, because boy, I did not mean that to sound hot, but what I'm trying to say is that Taliesin would like go silent and we'd be watching him sometimes in the same room, and I'd start to worry. I'd be like, this is a lot of dead air. Like is something wrong? And he was just listening and like a sniper waiting for the moment to jump back in. And he had an incredible instinct for like how much negative space would support the sudden presence returning.
Well, it's fascinating because, like, I'd only really considered this from what you'd said earlier, which is like, if you wanted to just have someone deliver like pre-cooked lines, you could have done that, but nah.
Yeah.
You have live interactions, and that means that there can be these pauses, these breaths, these moments of contemplation. And yeah, it was... The hunter analogy was perfect, going quiet and waiting for the right moment. Again, I should have probably thought of that one before now, but oh boy. Sorry, you were saying, I just...
I think I had finished, at least on that topic. I'm sure I'll return because I am nothing if not the guy you bring to the party to say the same thing 50 different ways. I don't know why.
Yeah, some would say that's a super talent. Sammy was pointing out that the measure cuts had exceptional timing as well. I didn't get to meet the measure cuts. I think Kyle and Ems did. Actually, I'll sneak Kyle in to come join us in a little bit.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, so someone did ask earlier, and you know what? Considering the amount of time we got to spend with these gods, I feel this is more than a meme question, but which characters did get the most amount of thirst? Because Hunt the Strong doesn't surprise me, but you never know.
Yeah. Boy, it's hard to say objectively because at some point those in the know, I think, worked out who played whom. And that flipped it.
Okay.
Okay. So I will say that there was non-zero step on me energy directed towards In Her Teeth, aka Erica's character, from very, very early on, and it just multiplied. And she did not mind. Like she understood. I think she tends to be excitable and just kind of generally full of joy for like all possible forms of attention in real life. And so if she were a player, I think she would have been that kind of player too, and had said so.
Kyle's sheepishly raising hand.
It gets pretty equal. Yes. I wasn't going to call Kyle out, but
Actually, do you mind if I bring Kyle in? Because we're talking about directly.
No,
and
please,
Kyle is
sure.
waiting in the green room.
Yeah, Kyle will add the correct chemistry to this.
So, for those of you watching who don't know, Kyle's the reason I got into this. Kyle was the one that gave me the copy of the Blackout Club initially for a charity event. We had no idea what we were getting into. We didn't know about the enhanced horror. We didn't know about the interactions. We were just like, oh, it's a spooky game. Oh, it's by the same people who did the Magic Circle. I fucking love the Magic Circle. Yeah.
That's totally true. So, backstory is that I was working at The Escapist at the time, and I was trying to put together a charity stream, which unfortunately got canceled just because the higher-ups didn't like how I was organizing it. By myself, by the way. And I invited Will to be on there, and I'm like, hey, Will, would you like to play the Blackout Club? And he did investigating into the game more than I did. I'm just like, oh, okay, video game, multiplayer, stealth. All right, let's do this. And we just kind of kept at it, and then we had our first interaction. It was like, oh, it's this. What is this? We should keep doing this. But hi, gents. How are you?
Hey,
Good.
and extend the thank you from earlier to you as well, and all of the cadre who were part of Will's group. We definitely came to rely on the people sort of watching you folks for big plot points.
Well, we're happy to have been part of it. It was really just like an incredible experience to be so accidentally involved in something that ended up becoming meaningful to us by accident.
I don't think any of us expected it was going to become such a huge part of our lives, and holy beef and potatoes, it did.
Yeah.
But it's also
Weirdly, that is relatable. I didn't either. Not to the degree that it did. But to come back to your question, the ones that are surprising is the thirst directed towards Speak as One. It's sort of like, thy body does not matter, mom, dad.
It's for the bisexuals.
Maybe.
Where are these deviants? Point them out in chat. Everyone's like, what? No, hang on.
Yep. We got some prayers.
Liz is just calling it thruple dreams.
Prayers that may be legally actionable.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, lordy. Yeah, no, that has definitely set everybody off. Well done. Well done.
I mean, I think maybe there's something in the human psychological makeup, which is simply that if you want something's attention, and for any reason, no matter how innocent, that attention does not return to you on a timely basis, I think some part of the brain flips towards like, now I want you extra hard, and no God was spared.
No God was spared. Oh.
Allow me to apologize. I'm extremely tired. I don't know if you know this, but the large part of social media is melting down.
Yeah.
And it's deeply affecting my work.
Yeah, I got the pre-announce out today because I was like, I don't know if Twitter's going to be here when we are, so I might as well tell people.
Yeah. Very smart thinking.
And Bacon, do not worry, this stream will be VODed and archived. The only thing I wanted to add is, I know we probably ended up being one of your like, okay, we need to drop a plot beat. Who's going? All right, Will's what's going. But again, as I was kind of bumbling through it earlier, we were still enjoying it even without that kind of direct interaction. Like, perhaps it's because of the feeling that anything can happen in the Blackout Club. Perhaps it's because like the tiny details that unfurl to more. But I was never bored on the evenings when y'all didn't come visit. And I mean, you saw my obsession with the buffalo, but the sheer amount of detail, especially in the maze and things like that, like we were finding new little details like months in, and
yeah, there was a lot of time was spent trying to seed that kind of stuff. Some of it to make sure that we had, backdrops for missions that felt motivated. It said you had to do them over and over again. But things like the cryptogram library, that was something that Null had pitched really early on, and we did a lot of work to try and generate, just an endless number of possible cryptograms, and putting in little things like the extremely rare event where you get a sleeper who goes in there and emotes along with a cryptogram being flashed on screen and stuff like that. I don't know if you ever even saw it. It was like a 1 in 100 chance, I think, that could ever happen.
God, I don't know if we saw that.
I don't.
Yeah, so little stuff like that was a lot of fun to put in, because I wish we had been able to do a lot more. Honestly, that was kind of the, when I think about the things that would have been fun to do when we had to put pencils down, it's more of that like surprising people with what could happen in the world of the Blackout Club, even when you weren't being visited. Even though the visits were obviously going to always be the highlight.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Oh, I have something to add, but I'll wait. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add that, for those who haven't been in game dev, it's not just something that happens to the Blackout Club. With all video games, you have to, as you said, you have to put pencils down. Features have to be left or not implemented, or a myriad of. What's always fascinating about this is that, at least from our chat so far this evening, it's all more things that you would have put in to mess with players, And that amuses me greatly.
Yeah. To add on to all of that, like just the work you did with the environmental storytelling was interesting, because once we figured out the way you were engaging players with the enhanced tour aspect, but as well as having the players piece together the clues that you were leaving, whether they were significant or not, and then theorizing. It was great. It was this great call and response that you created. Just really admirable work.
I think, one thing that we did that I believe Null got a lot of mileage out of, that we wanted to do more of, but we did make a pretty big effort, was to try and make the families in the houses coherent. Something that myself and one of our artists, CJ in particular, spent a lot of time on getting, family photos that were tied to sort of a family narrative, and things like I'm blanking on her name, Jordan, the 11-year-old in I think it was 918.
You mean you mean the one who becomes problematic?
Yeah, I'm 11
Kiara.
Now.
Yeah, I'm 11 now. Yeah. The one where with the symmetrical layout of all the toys in the room and all that stuff. I mean, that kind of stuff was a ton of fun.
That was one of those horror movie moments where we were doing our usual runs, we're running through it, and someone's like, "Yo, have you checked out that poster?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I've been through this room multiple times. It's one of the first buildings to get out." And they're like, "No. Go in there and have a look at the poster. What does it say?" It says, I'm like, "Oh, it says I'm 11 now." "No. What does the ring and the symbols look like?" And I had that, and then I look around and I see the symmetry in the room, and I'm like,
the clown room was definitely
okay. Fuck you guys for the clown room, all right? With love and respect.
I can take, I think, full responsibility for the clown room.
Ru, what did we do to you to deserve that?
If you had done a shark room, we would have known that you were targeting Will specifically.
There are no sharks in Redica. Sorry.
I don't remember what sparked it. I can't remember why. It might have been something somebody said in the chat when we were still working on that space on Discord. I can't remember, but something gave me... Oh, you know what it was? It was The Good Place. I had been watching a lot of The Good Place, and they put her in a house full of horrifying clown art. And I was like, there's probably a kid out there who loves clowns who would inadvertently, fill their room with the most terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We have a team member who is also afraid of clowns. So it's just sort of a little trolling.
It's nice to hear everybody does it.
I have something to jump in on that.
Please.
I definitely credit Ru and CJ with a lot of that environmental storytelling, but also Danny Manley, who is a writer who worked with me on BioShock 2, and had this very brief period where, before he got sucked into the next one of those, where he helped develop all those family names and backgrounds. Like, you know, he was sort of given a set of guidelines, which were like, hey, let's make sure that this place is conspicuously diverse, right? Star Trek level diverse, because Speakers One wants a Noah's Ark like sample of all of you know, ideas and structures relating to order and conformity across the world, and has people who are faithful to it across the world. So bring them all in. He, I think, did a great job, and there's still like, you know, a lot of his thoughts about what might make for an interesting family structure marbled throughout what shipped, and lists of those assets that allowed Steven and CJ to just, like, you know, humanize those spaces.
Yeah, he never really got to finish his work, but the stuff he started was absolutely what we used as our sort of initial guiding light on filling out those homes.
Yep.
Well, and what was fascinating is from our perspective is, like, especially with when Wakia became more and more prevalent, like understanding that these weren't just copy pasted assets like laid out like a cul-de-sac. No, it was an actual little town. You could trace the families. You knew who was where and what was going on, and learning the interactions. You know, when you find Chase the Sun's broken wheel up in the feckin' the loft attic room and things like that. Holy crud. And sorry, just the detail in the families really gave weight to it. I guess I'm just throwing some compliments on the end of your point.
No, you set the table perfectly for something I wanted to say earlier about how resources were expended. You know, on the one hand, I think that Steven, and in fact all of the sort of folks who kind of by nature had to work on the video game part of the video game did a lot with a little. And even though our focus was split between this experimental sort of like surprise, you're using a Ouija board sort of experience that was like layered over the Blackout Club, there was also that like had to be a pretty functional and solid cooperative stealth game under that. We sort of found ourselves split between those two worlds all the time, and so, you know, a really efficient live story game probably would have focused entirely on the interactions and done something much more reserved with the physical space, something like Inscription, say. But that wasn't where we came from. We were not puzzle designers. We were not, you know, like small space adventure game designers. We were immersive sim designers, though that may be an increasingly irrelevant term, and wanted to do something that made those folks feel good. And it always will be kind of testament to watching us stretch sort of too far in every direction. It's why some of the things that we wanted to do couldn't make it in. But on the other hand, I think they did a great job. The team did a great job of sort of the same thing that Ru is complimenting me for, but prior to shipping, which is like, okay, here's our space. Let's make sure it's rich. Let's make sure that there's something for you on the 12th time you go through there.
Yeah, that was important to me, I know, and everybody, but like that the space, if you tried to scratch the surface, that you would see like, oh, there's something here. Like, I can believe this if I, you know, like, you know, you probably can't go too deep before hitting sort of how deep it goes, but that it wasn't just like, you know, oh, here's a bunch of assets dumped in a place and it has no identity or reason for how it is. You know, there is a reason why each room in the maze is the way it is. There's a reason why each house, you know, has what it has in it, and that was, you know, that goes back to sort of our backgrounds as game makers before this.
I mean, the choice to make it a first-person cooperative experience definitely put everybody in a certain mindset that made the live storytelling far more powerful. I think, and I'm just spitballing here, but if you'd gone for something that was mechanically simpler, you probably would have suffered from the same problem of the Daniel Mullins problem, where everybody knows and kind of winks at each other. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole another thread. Just very quickly jumping back into chat. So, to those of you asking about expansions to the map, Null and Ru already covered the third section of. So, no worry, but you'll probably want to go back and dig out all the details on that one.
To interrupt super quick,
Go for
there
it.
was one question I saw about a spire in the woods, and I can answer that if people do care.
Oh,
the
hell's yeah, we
spire
care.
the spire was going to be a radio tower that was hidden and being built, I think. Jordan, you can maybe, or no, you can remind me on the, if, I can't remember whether it was like something that had been sort of hidden. We never got far enough to sort of actually build it. My memory of it was that it was something that had been hidden from Chorus and was going to be leveraged to get, brief messages out of Red Acre as for some of the missions that would involve the third area.
Yeah, well, the hope was exactly right. That the one that remains was more of a project in progress that you would get to participate in or use in some way, and it had only been up for a night or so. Whereas there was also the idea that they had their own PBX sort of cell network, a local cell network where they controlled everything, and that the sort of towers for which were hidden inside trees. And it all got kind of muddled because that artifact asset remained there, even though we never got to the missions to support it.
Yeah.
And like with a lot of things, I did my best to paper over it through text interactions.
Well, and the one that I'm talking about, though, was the one that was in the fourth area that nobody could get to without actually breaking the map.
That one.
There was
gotcha.
the one that was like it was going to be like an actual metal, radio tower, that had been sort of laid out by some early design.
Yeah, and we talked through various incarnations of that. Hypocrisy was also pretty important, like the thought that there are many rules that the average citizen was cleaving to, but that the elite still needed to coordinate globally, so that they periodically broke their own signal laws and so forth. But none of that really manifested. By the time we got to live, it wasn't necessary. The idea was that agents would leave town, do all the contact with faraway sort of loci of power, and then those folks would come in, essentially driving.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of wacky things were considered, and there are monuments to them in some of those 3D assets you can only get to through naughty behavior.
Look, all I do is I stand right close to the thing, but without it messing with my view, and I send my drone, and my drone goes and has a look. It's fine. It's fine. I do want to point out what Alfred Deluge did mention, which is to the if people do care. Yo, hi, hello. We are absolutely your target audience. Chanto mentioned the the best worst urban legend that the trees were moving. I don't know who started that one, but sorry, for those who don't know, there was a rumor going around that at one point that the trees were moving about and changing placement, which they weren't, but.
I mean, it's possible that they did between updates, but if so, it was probably to fix a bug.
Okay, were there any ones like that where y'all were fixing bugs behind the scenes and we as a bunch of lore-hungry fiends were like, oh, they've done this, what could it mean? And we've already answered the buffalo. The buffalo's been sorted. I feel better.
I know there were. I just can't think of anything specific anymore because, again, brain erased in the past 3 years. But there were. Yeah, let's see, what is Liz saying?
Well, a number of the name fragments were, the players got to the point where I don't think consciously in most cases, but maybe a few of the cheekier ones got there, where they sort of realized that it was a slightly hellacious pop quiz when they were like, tell us the story of this fragment. And sometimes those fragments were just placed by somebody quickly before a content lock. And we only had X number of emotes. And so I had to come up with, who was there and why. And there were a few of them that I had stories for because I placed them. And then there were other ones where I did not. And sometimes they would say, was this person scared? Why were they hiding in this machine room? And they might give me some sort of a cue, and quite frequently I was like, yes, you are so correct, clever children, and then that would become canon.
The dungeon
and haunt
master
me
skill.
for months. Yes.
Jumping back in, so Sammy was asking who the other half of the voice pair was going to be.
Oh, we've got Fiona in the green room.
Oh, yes. And Ems.
Waiting.
Bring the whole squad in. And at some point, I have a trailer to show you both for Deus's next work. I got to see it already. It's really fucking cool. Let's bring in Fiona and Ems. Hello, hello.
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 Hi.
Hi.
So many
y'all,
people.
welcome. Glad you made it.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. It's been so long.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Ems about it, and I was thinking, because I haven't played it, and because I've been playing Sea of Thieves for so long now, that I forgot like all the keys and whatnot to play, and we're sitting here in the car, just being like, oh, okay, let's retry all these buttons.
Yeah, we're
then
sitting here like learning all the controls.
Yeah, and then I remembered how long it took me to move on from the Blackout Club. Like, I straight up didn't play Sea of Thieves right away, just mourning that game. I think I had like an actual time period where I couldn't play it. I couldn't play any other game. I felt like I was cheating on the Blackout Club.
If I should just say I can relate, except maybe for the last part.
Yeah.
It's the one game that I played consistently for the longest period of time in my adult life.
And the thing I wanted to add on to it is, and I think this is true for a lot of us, is that, whilst the Silent War was probably one of the trickiest from a technical standpoint for you all, like, it also happened while we were all stuck indoors, and it was the perfect time to do something that was super, super theory crafty, Cold War of the Gods type.
Whoa, hold on a second. Are you using so the term was the Quiet War? Is that your term for the pandemic times? Because that's perfect. It wasn't what we meant, but I like that.
It was the Quiet War. I got it wrong, but I like that better, so I'm going to keep using it.
Okay.
So Snuggly wanted to ask, tacking onto the name fragment questions. Yeah, here's all the I Dare fans coming out of the woodwork. Were they in a random order, or were there patterns?
Gee, look at the time.
You're allowed to be like, you're allowed to no comment.
So I think Ru can probably talk about the way in which they shuffle before they appear for a given player. It's not the same every time. That much I know.
Yeah, it's the way it was set up is there is a set order, but there is a random possibility at each step along the way. So you won't necessarily they won't be in the same place. It's kind of I'd have to go back and look at how I scripted it, but I remember
an
there was
individual
like
one will always be there if it's there, but of that small group, I think it picks
one. It picks one randomly. Yeah, per person, I think, right? Like, because it is like a private thing. I'm trying to remember now. Like, if somebody, yeah, because if somebody sees it there, other people will not necessarily see it there. I believe
that's true.
It was intended to like be for each person on the server. They each get their own, because we wanted to track their progress. So yeah, like when you find one in a given cadre of them, it goes to the next.
Until Will's earlier point, a reason to come back and look later, right?
Yeah.
We need anything to sort of drive.
And we didn't want it to be a thing where somebody could like map out like, here's the order that you find them in, and here's where they all are. We wanted there to be some like an indeterminate element to that, so that you couldn't make a very simple sort of like just do it in this order and you get them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Were there any that
somewhere between? Please update our wiki and don't you spoil things with wiki.
Yeah. And I think
we never picked.
And you definitely can ultimately make that. I think if you find all the ones that could happen at any given step, then you can find where to all the places you need to look. But it was just to sort of confound that a little bit.
Were there any fragments that got missed?
I don't believe so. Not by the end. I remember seeing. Liz would probably remember who it was, but quite late, somebody found a new one, and it sort of spread through the Discord. And I think it was the last. Ultimately, there really weren't that many, and we never. I mean, look, bluntly, and on theme with everything we've been talking about, it was never to our benefit to say exactly how large or small a given space was.
Yes.
And possibility, for sure, was the most important. And so I think Xavier in the chat was saying, did the God fragment mess that up? They're talking about a fragment which was always there when a voice was present. It might have messed individual players' metrics up, because this fragment, it looks like a ghostly white shadow that is only there when you close your eyes, like all the others. But this one, there were a couple of them actually, and they would be there for sure when a voice was in the game, so that early on we had a guaranteed way to train players how to find one and spread the word that others might exist. Well, it became the way that clever players are like, we're being watched, and so they would alter their behavior and be like, okay, so I grabbed it and pulled it into the ground. that fragment vanished, and I think we did something simpler with the rest. But
I think you could end up with 2 in the case where the God fragment was there, because or maybe it hid the others if the God fragment got activated. I can't remember.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was some. Okay, we effed up. Let's revise the code.
One random little detail about that was I did do work to make it so that if you had the first fire, it would illuminate. And I think people figured this out, but it would illuminate the smoke much more brightly. That would give it away, like where your fragment was in the level. So if you got the first fire quest and carried it around, you would get a better chance of finding it.
Shit.
Yeah, but it's actually perfect, and like so many of my experiences working on this game and ours as a company, there were various ways in which the art mirrored the life, or the life mirrored the art, because in attempting to control the behavior of the plucky kids, which is to say y'all, by like, oh, you will not, get a guaranteed way of seeing that a voice is present. We proceeded to watch for months as folks were like, okay, there's a lag spike, and sometimes there's a pop. They worked out all these other signals where, like, after a while, you folks were just as good at being like, oh, so we're being watched. But I think manners probably emerged evolutionarily in the same context. They were like, oh, they'll run away if we make a big deal. Be normal till they start talking.
We started referring to it as like a shudder, like a feeling.
Yeah.
And I guess it was because like we were streaming and everybody was connecting to kind of my session. So you'd see that little stutter and be like, oh, I just felt something. It was
we never did. Go ahead.
We tried to find ways around that too. Oh, sorry. You can finish what you're saying.
Oh, just that it became a really good way of kind of like knowing to get like, all right, it's time to get into character now. Like, it's time to stop talking about whichever anime show we were just trashing on and get in the spirit. Yeah, like Nene-chan says, it's like, okay, we can feel it now. Everybody be cool. Be cool.
Yeah, and on console it was way more obvious because it was definitely tied to your CPU, like because it was a replication thing. The god had to get the state of the world updated, so there would be like this moment where everything had to be updated and it would hit the server just a little bit.
Yeah, I cannot imagine how much of a Herculean task it was launching something like this, not just on PC but on console as well. Like feckin' yo.
It was wild.
It still surprises me that we did it, honestly.
Oh yeah, so that was something that Wraith was asking, and knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done different?
Yeah, definitely. Ru might have a more of a wild card answer to that, so but I'll answer after you if you've got anything.
God, I mean, there's a lot. Like, there's a lot of there's
I
just
know, it's a
very
big question.
prosaic. Yeah, there's a lot of prosaic technical things I probably would have done a little differently because I realize I could have. I don't know. Just when I look at the game, I'm always looking at the art and thinking, that could have been better. That could have been better. That could have been better. So that'll never go away. That's true on anything I work on. And there's a million places in the game where I'm like, oh, we could have done this, and it would have looked way better, and it wouldn't have really cost me anything to do it. So that's all over the game. But beyond, there's if I wish. And most of this is about wishing that there had been more time to just flesh out more of the game, but I would have loved to have done more sort of long form things along the lines of the place between and the ciphers and that kind of stuff. Like it's something that gave people more long-term goals when they weren't, directly engaging with the visits and things like that, so that when I look at the success of it as a game outside of visits, that's the sort of stuff where I'm like, yeah, there weren't enough things for you to be trying to achieve beyond that, and I wish we had done more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with all of that. I have I think a more maybe divisive answer, which is to say, on some level, I would have liked to see, and still one day, if possible, would like to see the game that really leans into the communication and the lore spreading and all of that, and doesn't necessarily try to be everything else as well. If not to occupy the same kind of exact space in people's hearts, just to sort of see the little shadow medium evolve faster. Because this kind of thing is very expensive to make and time consuming. And, a lot of what we did ultimately, like, if you really, though the stage was set by the kids walking up to a roof, and a lot of immersive kind of prep work was done by those choices. From that point forward, quite frequently the interactions were just y'all sitting up there and having a conversation. There wasn't a whole lot of integration with the gameplay, so I either would have wanted to see a lot more of that, where they had more to ask you to do and more things to reward you with, or way less, where the conversation was the point. Conversations themselves can change lives, and I see no reason there shouldn't be a game in this sort of milieu that tries to do something smaller but maybe more focused. But the other thing that Wraith's question sort of frames is, I really wish that rather than getting too excited about the innovation of the feature and the story and the world and the lore and all of that I especially, but I guess we to an extent had really leaned into the business problem first. In other words, people throughout the Blackout Club said over and over, give us a way to support you. Just connect some kind of crowdfunding to this. And we weren't prepared to do that, on any level. And beyond that, things that are an ongoing service like the stage shows, they charge a ticket price and they charge it every time. Some hybrid between the ticket model or the season pass model and the the guarantee of X amount more live performance hours connected to, basically just taking away the curtain of how the thing can be supported more directly. That stuff, we didn't work it out. Steam wasn't really built for it. We didn't have Discord integration with the game. All of that, I think, would have made it more robust and go on for longer, and allow folks to spread the word, knowing exactly what they were getting for brokering that support on our behalf. So, these are the things that, if I had a time machine, I would probably go back and be like, you shut up about the lore. It doesn't matter. Your lore will run dry, sir. You need a financial model.
Yeah, we definitely talked a lot about how to crack that nut, because it's a really tough problem. Because if you ask for people to, buy a ticket, then you kind of have to guarantee the interaction, and that's really hard to do at scale. So there were a lot of it wasn't a thing that we didn't sort of bend our minds to, but we definitely didn't solve it. Yeah, and I was disappointed about it.
But there are, what Will does, there are models of X amount of presence rather than X amount of personal attention. I'm not saying that there wouldn't have been tons of complaints. I think no matter what, there would have been complaints. But it would have been more sustainable, and ultimately, I can't help but sort of long for that.
Well, not to pat backs specifically, but this is a unique kind of game and a unique kind of experience. As you were saying about the ticket model and expectation, I mean, you'll had to even say on the DLC that, like, purchase does not guarantee preference. And even that did confuse some users. The thing is, there isn't a model like this to draw from directly. Part of the Blackout Club's success with its story is that it's not guaranteed. The visits are special, and they do change things. They do have a lasting impact, not just on the lore, but on the people involved in them. And you can't just be like, pew pew pew, everybody gets to hang out with Matt Mercer! Like, it's possible that like a Patreon model could have worked with everybody supporting it, but yeah,
totally.
Steam don't support that because Steam doesn't think of anything other than the point of purchase. Steam, Mr. Valve Gabe, we need words.
Yeah.
Sorry, for those of you who don't know, Steam doesn't have a tipping system or any like direct non-microtransactions or non-DLC or Steam item systems. So I mean, what could you have done apart from, a gajillion cosmetics, which then puts a massive strain on the art team, which then takes all the money that you were trying to make to keep it going? Yeah, it's
a tough problem for sure. I mean, Patreon probably is, the closest thing and something that we kicked around a lot, but that's, I mean, not to get into financial weeds, but that has complications with our publisher and on all that kind of stuff too, because of funding agreements and all that kind of stuff.
You'll work with a God, why am I so terrible at words today? You'll work with an arts grant, if I remember rightly, for this one. Or was that for the Magic Circle? Sorry, if you can't talk about this, please, we'll move the conversation on. I'm a biz dev nerd.
A grant or like a tax break? I don't remember.
I mean, not really. No, we were not. I mean, we've got. I don't know if we even got tax breaks, but no, we were funded via Viacom. I think that's all.
One thing that should be called out on that front, which I'll forget if we move too far from the topic, and it's relevant to something somebody asked an hour ago now in the chat about, shouldn't the devs be able to show up and just talk into the mic? Like, not really. And part of the reason for that is because though we weren't given any money by any arts institution, the SAG-AFTRA union made special rules just for us. There was nothing like this, and we wanted to use union talent. We strongly support unions whenever we've got the power to. And so, getting these folks into this structure where, they could perform in, let's call it non-standard facilities with non-standard equipment.
Yeah.
We did our best to make sure they had a break every hour and all that good stuff, just like the union would. But SAG-AFTRA had to meet with us. They sent somebody over to observe the big launch event, and walked and went back to the office, actually lit up by what we were trying to do. So they gave us, really, as long as we wanted to run it, they were willing to waive a bunch of things, which to me ended up resulting in a grant-like boost to the game, because people who we would not have been otherwise able to get were able to participate, and were able to participate at a modest rate. Like they're the kind of people who could take any voice acting job and get paid a lot more than we were able to. It was done out of love, essentially.
That's really fucking cool to hear.
Yeah, and that elevated the game in huge ways. Obviously, like, it's so much of the power from those performances, but it also means that we can't do it because we're not in the actor union. So that's sort of where that comes from.
We need to get you some dodgy SAG-AFTRA IDs. No, it is me, David Microphone. I am clearly a voice actor and allowed to be here.
Yeah. I looked into what it would take to get certified, just so I could do some random whispery crap that we could sample and use here and there, but it was not to be.
God, I should never come up with names because now everyone's like, wow, the David microphone? No. But that did mean some really interesting interactions later on in third act with, obviously it meant the idea was very prevalent, but also like the emergence of Wakia potentially becoming like a fucking fight god. And like a lot more interactions with HQ and the people and the Dead Skeptics and things like that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in terms of things that Null asked for that were like, oh, crap, can we do that? And kind of cramming it in pretty late. The whole, like, making the text message system, the sort of, like, phone
That's
messages.
right. That wasn't possible.
No, that was a real, like, bolted on, like, sort of...
Perfect example.
Yeah, weird, like, Frankenstein thing I did to, what we had, which was just meant to deliver canned, mission data, and finding a way to sort of bolt that into the live text thing via sort of like a toggle between, God mode or voice mode and like, club member mode.
Yeah, and to briefly shout out David Pittman, aka D Phrygian, he had added a function to it prior to ship, which was the ability to for the stalkers to take a photo of the person who they were stalking. So the system had been expanded in that way, and it was super cool. And then, yeah, I think later on, I was becoming pretty tired of the cadence and the caps lock of the other text characters, and I was like, there's a huge opportunity here to humanize Gwen and Dax and some of the other characters, let's say, that didn't get much play but were very popular pound for pound through the text message. And so yeah, that was a big deal, and ended up being, those of you who lived through the sort of game when we were in it basically every night, the reason why the text messages were too fast to read half the time is because there was no way to alter that. The feature was being co-opted for narrative purposes. It wasn't built for them.
Like Zavi saying, yo, sometimes you just gotta LARP as a little gremlin child.
Yeah.
It's so much of my joy, like, the thing
y'all inspired that.
The thing that, that Null is lamenting a little bit about, making it more about the story and stuff. Like, I have those same regrets, but at the same time, part of what drove us at the beginning that was really contrary to that, and probably one of our core problems, was that the magic of not expecting it at all. Like, some of my favorite things watching people play this game is when some element of that, catches them off guard, and adding that text message feature. I got so much joy from the first time Null deployed it, because people were only used to seeing that as mission updates that were canned, and the fact that it could catch you off guard and suddenly, wait, what's happening now? Haunted game is being haunted in a different way. That stuff was, that gave me so much life.
Shit, Kyle, yeah. Was it Halloween was the first time we got by that?
Oh goodness, I can't even remember.
Because it was definitely I heard the buzz. I didn't pay attention because we were just used to like mission updates, and everyone watching just lit up like a Christmas tree. It was like, Will, look at your phone! And I took out my actual people phone. I was like, people were fucking texting me.
Oh, jeez, I can't remember the first. I'm having no, I can't remember shit over the last 3 years.
And by the time M and M's were around a whole lot, I think that was our main source of like, okay, this is somebody who is not the conventional voices, right? Like we added characters for, to try and show interest from representatives from the voices who either were unavailable for casting reasons for a little while, or were just sublimated somehow.
I think a lot of mine was right, because I didn't start playing until right after the pandemic started.
Yep.
And so a lot of my interactions in the beginning were purely in text format. And so I guess I came into it a different style than Will and Kyle, because I was already kind of looking for it, because it was the only kind of communication I had. That and the buzz.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was often hard because of the, like, on the one hand, there was really good copy paste features on PC. There weren't at all on one of the consoles, and so like the quality of those interactions would sort of rise or fall depending on where you got contacted, and it was just like impossible. Copy paste just didn't exist in the technical interface.
Looking at you, PlayStation.
Yeah.
It was always amazing though, because it would happen for me at like the right time, and I'd catch it, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to repeat things sometimes, and that sort of stuff. But like, I think y'all were very patient with us, given that we're trying to make everybody feel sort of seen, but some of the voices just weren't as well developed. But it was just cool watching, like, frankly, you all kind of rip on each other.
Like, there's numbers is sharing in chat. This is the worst. I think that was when HQ logged in whilst we were being weirdly thirsty one night. That was a night.
The amount of times
one night?
the HQ would come
One
up.
night?
Oh no,
When
a
we'd
very
just be
specific
being-
call out.
We'd be being so weird, and y'all would have to interact with us being that bad.
Yeah.
God bless you for wanting to continue working with us.
I have seen some shit. And y'all were not the worst. Let me just put it that way.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Like, I wish you could tell us those tales. I wish you could.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a function of that exact trust, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're being invited into an individual group's living room, and there is a trust associated with, whatever dumb joke they made or whatever thirsty thing they said. And so, yeah, that's the confidence that I think is really important to keep. But I did want to say that, like, before I forget about the text feature, I alluded in the Discord at some point to like a thing that was rolled out and just didn't get the purchase in time. Some players, some lucky randos, got weird interactions where I texted them as mom or dad, like an Earthbound or something, and just started like demanding that they come home, and I know you're with those kids and all of this sort of stuff.
Oh shit!
And it was like speak as one, but as represented by an individual sock puppet.
That's so cool.
God.
Yeah, and like, I definitely, I don't think that I think it's now safe to spoil because I don't think we're gonna go that deep, with the tools. Though I like the idea of using them for hybrid role play sort of stuff, like we did with the last tabletop session. Just little captures here and there that make it seem more real.
Yeah.
But yeah, those players were like, what's going on? Like, because it was very obviously listening to them, and but they hadn't met their mom or dad as a character. So, and some people just completely missed it, right? Because the text messages went too fast. And so ultimately, it's like, this could have been so cool, but I would have needed to at least delay it more.
Fucking
wild.
yo.
I had to poop myself.
I would have lost my shit. That was cool.
I pooped myself right there on stream.
Well, I think the closest
I mean,
came...
that's what we offer as a feature. That's what it is.
Brown Trouser Time.
Free DLC.
The closest I came to Brown Trouser Time was actually just completely unrelated. So it was one of like mine and Kyle's first runs. It was either pre or post our first meeting of management. I still get nervous saying speakers one. I've conditioned myself not to say it, so I still say management.
I love that. that.
And I was at GameWorks and we had an internet outage. And so we've just gotten the fucking phone, which as the early missions go, that's when you really have to learn. But we found the fucking phone and we're creeping out. And I'm like, okay, I think we've got this. If we just make a beeline, we can head up through the house. I'm like, Kyle, I turn around. Kyle's gone, and the phone item he was holding is just on the ground. That was the point where I was like, nope. Turned out we'd lost internet and he'd been disconnected, so it's not even cleared. Or it was Kyle got booted, because I don't know if that was... The point being, Kyle's disappearance due to internet connection and the phone just being there, that scared the hot pee out of me. And it's that great haunted house effect where that wasn't even something y'all did. You just set up the house and just let our imaginations fuck us up sideways.
Well, you were still streaming at GameWorks at the time.
Yeah.
And like they had an outage. So I remember very distinctly that it was your internet went out and I just got completely disconnected. And I was like, oh no, what happened here?
Like, on that note, we did occasionally straight up rapture a toxic person who was being like disgusting to the performers or whatever. But that gave you a message, so people were like, oh wow, like, and then they couldn't get back in. Like, we had our own tools to protect the sort of psychological sanctity of the people who were giving their time to this. But the thing we didn't do on purpose ever, but happened a couple of times was, and I know some folks in chat lived through this, like we started an interaction not realizing that a stalker had joined seconds before the interaction, and so they were there hearing everything but unable to speak back because of the way the tech works. And those poor stalkers would be like watching the children and be like, okay, I'm about to spring my trap. And then they would suddenly vanish. They'd be alone in Red Acre, just full, like the beginning of 28 Days Later. It's like, what happened?
So, like, when the teams got whisked off to, like, SatCon on the moon or something, and the stalkers just like, wait, where did they go?
Yep.
That's so good.
It was only a few times, but every time it was like, oh, this is so, I'm so sorry, child, but also this is kind of funny.
Because we had one where it was management and a stalker in, and that was a trip. That was some proper heart-pumping nonsense.
Yeah, a couple of times we played into it, right? A couple of times Hunt the Strong, encourage the stalker to behave, suboptimally, but play into his crap, or like there were a few intentional times for it, but it was so chaotic. As is, just getting you all to stop memeing and teabagging each other long enough to like hear what was going on was a fair amount. It was like there was a finesse to it. Add to that a person who was actively attacking them and just spamming flashbangs. Signal to noise ratio got pretty poor. We didn't do a lot of it, but occasionally people had that moment of just like, where did my game go? I wish we could have given them a special coupon.
Actually, in on that subject, one thing that I did want to ask, because of the challenges of this live storytelling thing, and because we're pretty weapons free with spoilers, were there any beats that got missed? So, like, y'all went in, the interaction happened, but it never got picked up by the rest of the club.
Oh, you mean story beats rather than, because interactions got missed all the time. Like voiced like the service that the game was trying to offer as a sort of golden ticket, sort of random thing.
Yeah,
happened to a lot of folks who have no idea it was ever there. They never distinguished it as any different from other voice, or they couldn't speak back or whatever. We couldn't falsify success. So we, but story beats. Oof. You know what? I feel like chats should contribute stuff that they felt dangled. A lot of them we picked up in tabletop later, and I intend to do again actually if life eases up a little. But
what are you talking about now? Making video games is easy. It's dead easy. Leaves you loads of free time.
It is. Me and the other lazy devs spend most of our time drunk.
That's where the Blackout in Blackout Club comes from. Heyo.
Correct.
That is absolutely not the case. I have met a bunch of the squad from Question, and they could all stand to take more time off.
You're not wrong. I have just come back from some, and I was like, oh, you mean sometimes you wake up and you can finish a thought? That's novel.
That's cute. So jumping back in, Snuggly was saying there was something about measure cuts being trapped at some point. I thought that was measure cuts in the in-between. I think now we're just...
I think that was just hard to interpret. There was real-life schedule issues bridging into how does the place between become a place that the meeting could occur. and that anyone uninvited would not be able to enter. Why were the gods, who are at least the part of the family who are still speaking?
Yeah.
Why are those folks safe from speak as one while inside? And the measure cuts, having gone in to prepare the way and mastering effectively Doctor Stranging, right? Time magic to create that safe instant, forever preserved, where the eclipse happens and then everything stops. That was supposed to be him doing that. All of this were things that we'd considered, but schedule issues made it that like he was in there and could not speak back. So he started speaking through Gwen, who is a text character. Like a lot of slowly I had to transition almost all of them to, they had some kind of text representative. And not all of them were done so equally. You know, there were some cases where I was like, I just can't introduce another person who speaks in another type of caps lock or another case that is recognizable.
But it did make it feel very, very organic from our side. Like, it never felt like we were getting... It never felt like certain things were getting preferential treatment narratively. It felt more like this was how things were shifting. I mean, I think all
you were very sweet, but they absolutely were. Like some of my darlings got double tapped in the back of the head because there was just no way around it.
All I was going to add is that I think anyone here who's run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign knows exactly the pain that you've gone through. Rilu's asking, Dead by Daylight dating sim when for the gods?
Oof.
Yeah, that's what the people want. Date those gods.
I don't know that they do. To be honest, we were talking about prayer and absence and the response. The Dead by Daylight dating sim, it's cute, but I think people like to spend a lot of time imagining activity in the space between themselves and characters they know. The actual manifestation of it is usually kind of limited. So me personally, not so much. That said, if there were ever a game that were entirely around the sort of theater of it, I imagine that we would not make the protagonist kids, because that is not a creepy line we ever wanted to cross. We had to be a little bit hands tied behind our back in terms of any thirst coming from the players. We had to be like, anyways, you're 14. It was a weird situation. If you had adult protagonists and adult sounding voices, that would be a different matter.
Oh, I forgot about that. I think we all did multiple times. So skipping on from that one.
that was honestly, I want to touch on that just really quick. That was one of the hard things I had about really getting into the mindset, because I think I and maybe some other players, I'm 36 as of this year. I'm old as hell. And
be careful now,
older
friend.
than you. Hush.
And I think relating to the mindset of what I was 20 years ago made it really hard to roleplay in that space. And I know that this game kind of relied on the role-playing aspect of it all to really... I guess to really make those interactions ultra meaningful. And honestly, props to anybody that can roleplay in that manner. But that was just one of the things that I found difficult. So I think that as much as I enjoyed the interactions, I feel I personally lost something because I couldn't find myself in a good headspace to further my immersion.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of people's first contact with those kind of expectations, and in a rare subset, playing with literally some of the finest role players in the world. So it was a little unfair. We always sort of yes-anded along through that purposefully. It was never meant to make people feel judged out of game. Just to sort of I guess, suggest that there are other ways to play beyond, did you press the buttons in the right order? And
yeah, absolutely. And it never really it never negatively impacted never impacted like my enjoyment of the game or what was happening. I think it's more of a self-criticism, and that it's just like maybe I could have enjoyed it more had I like been able to act along, to play along.
Yeah, well, I can share the a sort of solidarity note on that, which is that, I quite frequently felt unqualified to offer the level of essentially therapeutic support that some of the players needed. The line between in character and out crosses the other way too, where they start in character and then they start talking about something really real, and not breaking kayfabe and not making the software a path to unqualified therapy that people can attach to without even knowing they're doing it was a very fine line to walk. And my heart went out to them every single time, and trying to keep it professional and yet kind. All I can say is I did what I could, and I learned a lot. I hope that those folks found the help that they needed.
Sorry, we just had to tell people to stop posting their ages in chat so we don't have to throw them out. Think about it like this, friends. The internet is like going into a bar. The bouncer hasn't asked you, so you haven't had to say anything. But if you yell, "I'm 14," you're getting bounced. So no one is gonna write their ages in chat again. Hey,
don't do it. I can say it out loud because I'm an adult.
Yes, we can say it out loud. Yes. Forum moderation. If I don't know, I don't have to throw you out. Right. Sorry, that was a very dramatic moving on forward. It was definitely a challenge getting into the mindset of, like, my young 14-year-old self, because he was a, weeby-ass dork? Oh, shit. But one of the things I did like was that we were put in this underpowered position. We aren't a bunch of secret agents with stealth pistols and power armor. We're not a ninja clan hunting dragons. We're regular-ass kids who, through the effects of the gods, get a bit beefcakey. Although every single child who's lived through Red Acre is going to need, severe reconstructive surgery on their knees.
Oh, yeah.
True.
Oh, yeah, and so much therapy.
So much therapy. And therapy forever.
Not sure I would ever actually trust an adult. If I was... I feel like you'd start, shit, and nope, I can't trust.
No, I'd also never sleep at night ever again. I'm already pretty nocturnal, but nah. Snuggly says, if they can paraphrase from Null from an interview, it takes 4 Blackout kids to form one Mr. Bioshock. But they're still more emotionally healthy, but that's another story. But no, I really appreciate the focus on, the kids in peril angle. I know that is one of the core foundations of this game, but I feel it warrants saying again, because it does put you in this, there's no one to ask for help. There's nothing you can do apart from rely on each other, which narratively is a lot better than a lot of co-op titles,
Yeah, that was originally kind of a practical matter. Ru, I think we were like, well, there's a lot of combat, we're not adding to this.
Yeah, we were about probably 6 months in before we decided to make that change. I think you proposed it, and I was like, there was probably an initial whoa, can we? But it just made so much sense, just in terms of the kinds of mechanics we wanted to do, and thematically. It worked sort of. It felt like such a precise, judo move to solve so many kind of problems that we had, and also to give the game a lot more interesting thematic hooks.
Yeah, and It Follows and Stranger Things.
Yep.
And
We had been watching a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it was big in the pop culture at the time.
So it was going to originally be 4 Mr. Bioshocks running around.
More like
Sorry.
More like your dad plus a lot of athletic conditioning or your mom who plus a lot of athletic conditioning they hadn't realized that they'd been doing. Like you were going to wake up covered in dirt as like one of the sleepers, something had gone wrong. And
okay.
And so you were not a full-on Mr. Bioshock ever, but I think substantially more capable than the kids ultimately were in terms of just outweighing the competition. But yeah, I'm glad that change was made. It certainly clarified a lot about the project.
So Rilu had a question which a few other people jumped onto, which I'd love to throw to you both. Was there, aside from the buffalo, because we already answered the buffalo, and thank you, were there some things that you considered very small, very petty, or inconsequential that the players or the community at large just got super obsessed with? And then, like, 3 people are like, dear statue, dear statue.
That was sort of more of a joke held up by one particular player who, by the way, also would pray almost exclusively for months about Final Fantasy.
That was the Final Fantasy person!
Yes. I think, not so much. There's definitely the Buffalo was the one that would have come to mind. But also I think there's a film reel that was an asset that Steven grabbed from an asset store.
Well, no, we made that.
With the name on it, though?
Yeah, we put that name.
Oh,
it was,
okay, well.
And and then it ended up getting used a lot more than we intended. I think it might have been made as a quest item or something. And I think we even made an effort to try and blur the name out. But
what was this one?
Yeah. It's in the records or archives. Can't remember what the name of the room was, but basically the cave section that's full of boxes of notebooks and film reels. It was like, and I think,
one of them is labeled with a name, and like it was just one of those cases where art and narrative were working furiously on separate things and just never agreed to figure out who that was. I'm sure I vamped and gave some sort of answer when people pushed on it, but it was like I'm not adding another important character for you to be thirsty for right now. Thanks.
Everyone's asking about the magazine.
Oh God, the magazine. That is the perfect example of something that was, I think it was a test asset for like collectibles, for a thing that we thought we wanted to do. Probably put in by Patches, I think, early in development, and it never got removed. And then absolutely, people fixated on it like it was this really important sort of secret or something in the game. But yeah, it was not hooked up to anything. It was absolutely, it was one of those things where like, oh yeah, every time we would do an update, I think, oh, we should take that out. But then it never like rose to the top of the list of things to do.
Well, and there was also a point where certainly after like early access was it was kind of jumping in terms of people's interest. They were already treating it like it was retail. So like once folks had fallen in love with the magazine, it's like, well, don't you dare remove the magazine unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah. You can't change it lest you set everyone on fire.
Yeah, you don't want the maghead faction to hate you. Like
please keep going. I am bursting for loose. I'll be back in just a second, but please keep going with questions and good stuff. Don't wait for me.
Oh, the compass. Yeah, that was something that I saw somebody just post about the compass. There was a lot of internal discussion about that compass, but we ultimately determined that it added almost nothing and ate up too much space.
Yeah, I'm scrolling back as well. Not so much questions recently, mostly memeing. I'm stunned.
Yeah, I don't think I was around for the Compass era. Us memes? What? Never.
I'm a very serious person. I only do serious things.
Very serious and quiet, usually. I make no noise. Definitely don't kick cans.
Is anybody having a little bit of trouble hearing Emma, or is it just my signal?
I think they're cutting in and out a little bit.
Every once in a while.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit of robo, but I think I got most of that. Okay, scrolling up is getting me nothing. Oh, somebody was like, yeah, have you met 14-year-olds? They're nasty, and I think they mean flirty all the time. It says 30, but well, that is true actually, right? And teen fiction that is written by people who have made that their entire focus and have lots of word count, lots of time with each individual character on screen in front of you, can show how simultaneously like curious and excited and like innocent and kind of performative all of that stuff can be, all while swearing like a sailor or whatever. But in our context, it was like, look, these are we saw people on the Discord who got profoundly uncomfortable, probably for very good real life reasons, with even the implication of somebody's character, somebody's personal canon character, having a crush on a god just because of the implied asymmetric power dynamic. And we're like, okay, we're not playing with this. So it's the sort of thing where, like, I think a film all about dawning teen sexuality, they've got the airtime to figure that out and to not make it cringy and to not make it exploitative. A video game needs to I think set rules that keep the most sensitive folks safe, to be honest. And we were always pretty committed to that. We weren't always perfect, but we tried.
Yeah, I think more than anything, you did a really good job for that. A large part of my own work is safety of the younger people and inclusion. So it's a lot of making everybody feel included. I think you had a good amount of success in that.
Yeah, and
we learned a lot from. Go ahead, please.
Oh, this is just responding to Burrick that yes, the baby masks were. I adore that movie Brazil, and that was 100% something that was stuck in my brain, that those baby masks, and I wanted it in our game.
Oh yeah, I actually got lucky. I saw the director's cut first of that film, so for years I couldn't work out why people didn't like it. Also, very quickly to Crux and everybody that's throwing stuff, we've got alerts paused at the moment, just because I don't want to interrupt Null and Ru any more than my dumb ass is already doing. But I will be turning those on once we get back into game. Well, let's say get back into game. Once we get started. So Prismacolors was asking if there are any concepts or voices you wish you would have had time to implement.
Well, the Eidolon, without question. Like I had a pretty healthy series of saved out clips, sorted by thematic family. And I was even working out sort of semantically how it would bridge between concepts, what gestures that some documentary about LSD from the 70s or something that's public domain now, what a gesture from that might signify. Stuff that same kind of thinking would later apply to the old tongue. Like, we certainly, though we knew we didn't have support for a full-on language made out of those emotes, we did think through the syntax when recording them, and then we sorry, I heard a chirp. Was it?
Oh, no, that was me laughing, because I had this mental image of us as a community trying to decipher the artistic or the visual language of these videos and then arguing with each other about, like, the meaning of it and the whole thing. Yeah. Like, I could hear the arguments that we'd all be having on Discord. That's what I started laughing at.
Well,
No,
exactly.
No, see, when the LSD documentary shows this bit, it really means this. I'll kill you.
Yeah, and it's kind of cliche now in horror, but I haven't ever seen it done right in a game where you, through exposure to a lot of the, at least in my head, through exposure to a lot of the sort of oblique subliminal signaling in those video clips, you would eventually get to the point where the Eidolon would seem to be speaking directly to you, but in the voice of Alex Jones or some asshole, and you'd be like, okay, what do I do here? But all of that tremendously expensive, as you know, the full motion sequences that we had shot with the help of South Park. We had to carefully budget those out. We had only the 2 actors basically. And so to do anything like that latter would have been adding a lot more. And then finally, I think Ru might have alluded to this earlier, but the memory requirements of the game just wouldn't have allowed us to bombard you with full-on video clips. So it just became walk away.
Yeah. One of the huge constraints about working on console and stuff like that, I think, what was it? Sunset Overdrive came up with a very elegant solution, which was like seasonal videos pulled from YouTube and streamed directly through. But that's another kettle of monkeys, because then you have to have an always online, and yeah. But no, this is absolutely fascinating, and yeah, to my knowledge, nobody's managed to do that in a video game space. Not without like specifically scripting or going like heavy-handed with it.
Ru's got to jump off for prior commitments.
Yeah, I've gotta eat food. So my partner is
commitments to having a body.
Taking care of yourself. My goodness.
Yeah.
Ruth,
But this has been
thank you so
awesome
much.
to chat with you all. So thank you.
Thank you for your
hopefully
time.
next
and
time
everything
we
that
can
you've
bring
said.
in some more of the
Wonderful.
team.
Yes, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
This will not be the
Awesome.
last time that we all get together to chat Blackout Club stuff.